Republican Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona said he hoped his defiant rejection of President Trump's falsehoods, reckless behavior, and personal attacks would be a, quote, tipping point. But for most members of his party, it was just another day. As President Trump tweeted Wednesday morning, Jeff Flake, with an 18% approval rating in Arizona, said, "A lot of my colleagues have spoken out. Really? They just gave me a standing O." And in interviews yesterday, many of Flake and Senator Bob Corker's colleagues, some of whom were once harsh critics of Trump, agreed.
The president has his own way of communicating, and look, it's worked. He's getting things done. He's performing. Sure, he's not the cookie cutter, but and I think that Republicans need to have a leader that takes the reins and does things the way he wants, so long as his goals are the same, and they are.
I try not to make it about personalities or, someone saying someone has less of a perfect character than they do. That's a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black, is that we tend to think, oh, somehow, I'm so perfect that I can criticize another person's character. One of the things the media's missed on all this, they keep saying, well, Senator so-and-so is a conservative. Why is there such a disagreement? Well, because we've made this about personalities and less about policy.
I think it's unfortunate, the nastiness that pervades Washington right now, and the political battles of personality that consume seemingly every minute of the media attention and an awful lot of the time and energy here in this town. It's like you're back in junior high. I really don't care who passed a note to the cute girls in pigtails. We got a job to do, damn it. And so all of this nonsense, I got nothing to say on it. Everyone shut up and do your job.
So, Joe, I feel like I'd rather hear from you, the Republican turned independent, because I don't think it's going to carry much weight coming from me. But I feel like there's such a disconnect here that the three gentlemen we just heard from are putting massive blinders on and disregarding behavior that defies humanity. We're not talking about bickering here, are we?
Well, we actually heard Willie Geist, TV's Willie Geist, the last gentleman who spoke today. Donald Trump would have us believe is going to be reading about his father today in the papers released on the JFK assassination. If you believe Donald Trump, Ted Cruz's father had something to do with the JFK assassination. Ted Cruz's wife derided by Donald Trump as being unattractive. Ted Cruz insulted time and time again by Donald Trump, and him trying to sort of paint everything with a broad brush is sad. First of all, you wonder why he doesn't feel more of a need to defend his family, and exactly how he does that, but that's up for Ted Cruz to figure out. But we heard Jim Inhofe say the president had his own way of communicating. Yes, he lies. And yes, he says he's going to strip licenses from news outlets with whom he disagrees. He uses Stalinist phrases and calls the press the enemy of the people, calls other people the enemy of the people. He actually questions the legitimacy of the judicial branch and specific federal judicial judges. If Barack Obama had done any of these things, Jim Inhofe would have held 8-year hearings on it. So yes, he does have his own way of communicating, and Inhofe says it works. Actually, no. The president has record low approval ratings. The Republican Party has as wide a split in the generic ballot as they've ever had with the Democratic Party. And Congress's approval is now sitting at 14%, an almost record low there. What he said is patently false. Jim Inhofe, there is no reason to follow this guy. He's destroying the Republican Party. If you just, as I said before, look at the data.
Well, Jim Inhofe went a step further, Mike. This was his quote yesterday. He said, maybe we do better. He's talking about Flake and Corker. Maybe we do better by having some of the people who just don't like him, talking about Trump, leave and replace them. That's Jim Inhofe saying, if you don't like what the president's doing, maybe you should follow Jeff Flake out the door.
The striking aspect of, we just showed 3 United States senators, Jim Inhofe, Rand Paul, and
Cruz.
And Ted Cruz. The striking thing about the 3 of them is they are so filled with fear. The fear of getting tweeted against, the fear of the noise of the Bannon wing of the Republican Party. I mean, it's as if they are in a house that's on fire and they don't sense that the fire is eventually going to get to the room that they're in. Kristen, in the polling that you've done with regard to Donald Trump, the President of the United States, and his status with elderly people, with independents, with whomever, does the issue of incompetence ever come up? Because that would seem to be his true weakness in the long run. Incompetence, the fact that they can't get anything done with him as president.
I think for voters that already didn't like Donald Trump, that's sort of baked into the cake for them. For voters who did vote for Donald Trump, again, you've seen a handful of them bleeding away, which is why his approval ratings that used to be just north of 40% are now a little bit south of 40%. But among Republican voters and the types of voters that a Senator Inhofe or a Senator Cruz is talking to, those comments they made are the sorts of things that I will hear in focus groups from Republican voters, that they just want to see things get done, that they get that the president tweets and they don't really like it, but you know what, I just want to see things get done. And in their perspective, you know, they're not, you don't really hear people say, well, you know, there's a co-equal branch of government and senators have every right to speak their mind. They just want to see things get done and they view it as a distraction. And they don't think that these senators coming out and making these comments are having any effect on actually changing the president's behavior. And so what's the point of it? I think, which I think is an interesting argument, right? I believe that if you disagree with this president, speak out by all means. But I think it's also valid to say, if you speak on the Senate floor and you give a speech that's lovely, but the president doesn't change his behavior, and if you haven't changed the minds of people in your party, is it a distraction? I think that's a fair question.
So the vulnerability that you just indicated, that you pointed to, if, you know, it's okay if things get done. What if things don't get done? How quickly does that boom go down?
Well, yeah, that's where I think the wheels come off. If tax reform goes down in flames and we get to the end of the year and Obamacare's still in place, there hasn't been any major movement on tax reform, the wall is still not built, I do think you will start to see more folks going, okay, maybe it's not mostly the president's fault, but he needs to do something different if he wants to make this work. And that may be when you see those numbers get closer and closer to the mid to low 30s.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.